This property could potentially be a headache, and I definitely wouldn't buy it for the asking price. So let me explain why. First of all, this property is a strata showroom industrial property. Half of this property is fantastic, but the other half is problematic. Let me explain. So the first half that's great is the front part, which is the showroom. As you can see, it's currently rented out to Burson Auto Parts. It's got great exposure, good outlook, good location, ticks a lot of boxes. The problem is the back half of the property. So the front part, which is the showroom, it's fantastic. The back part is one that's problematic. Why? As you can see from the photo here, that is the only exposure and access point for the rear property. So the rear property has a very weird angled roller shutter door, which is this one here, not very well exposed front door. It is not ideal for any occupiers to use that space because access is very, very difficult. So here's a top-down view. So you need to drive in here, do some weird sort of angle, and then sort of get in and do your deliveries and, you know, all your goods and things like that. So because the back half of the property is so awkward, has zero exposure, it is potentially problematic. When you buy this property, you might have the front half leased out. It probably lease out all the time, get good rent, but the back half could be problematic. You might be sitting on that property with a vacancy for a very, very, very long time. And they have an asking price of $4 million for this property, which is absolutely ridiculous. The property, we think, makes sense at about $3.3 million. Why? Well, at $4 million, you're looking at an initial yield of 4.6%, which is very, very, very low. Even with the rental reversions, you're only getting around that sort of, 5.6% net yield. And the problem is back half of it is really penalized in terms of rate per square meter. The front is great. The market rent for it is about $275 per square meter, but the back one, at best, because of the reasons stated, the most you're probably going to get is about $200 per square meter. So at $4 million, there's almost zero upside. It does make sense though if you're able to buy it for around the $3.4 million mark, because at least you're getting an initial yield of 5.5% net. And if you're able to carry a short-term vacancy and get the property leased out, you can potentially be sitting on around that sort of 7% or more rental income. Then that property starts to make sense. I absolutely would not be paying asking price for this property. At best, 3.3, 3.4, because of the inherited problems with the property because of the exposure of the rear unit. One solution to this is actually to combine the two together. So if you're able to knock out the inner tenancy wall at the back and combine the front and back unit together, you can then probably uplift the entire property to around that $275 per square meter. So this is us thinking outside the square. Most of the times when you split up the tenancies into smaller properties, you make more money, but not in this instance. In this instance, you actually want to combine the two into one big unit, which is about 1,000 square meters, which is still a pretty good size. You would actually get a much better rental across the board for it. So that just goes to show, if you understand property, you understand how properties work, you'll be able to then get the uplift that you need and get the profit and the results that you want. So if you want to learn how to turn a problematic property into a gold mine, then definitely hit the subscribe button and watch the next video.